Hey, what is up? Welcome to this episode of the Wantrepreneur to Entrepreneur podcast. As always, I'm your host, Brian Lofermento, and not only am I excited about today's episode, and especially today's guest, because this is a brilliant guy and a really smart businessman who is such a leader when it comes to technological innovations, but I'm also excited because this is just an exciting time to be alive. Things are changing so rapidly, new technologies are unlocking new opportunities, and it's not just that these opportunities are happening in the world of big tech, so many of them are ending up in our pockets these days, whether it's through smartphones or consumer level drones or augmented reality is here. It's not science fiction anymore. And today's guest is pushing that new frontier. So let me introduce you to this fellow businessman and entrepreneur. His name is Ben Shapiro. Ben is a former engineering professor with a PhD from Caltech. He ran a research group first in aerospace and then in bioengineering for 18 years. During that time, he got more and more involved with startups. And that's why I love that he got bit by the entrepreneurial and startup bug, because over time, he realized that he'd rather spend his time building from idea to product outside academia. So he gave up tenure and he went fully into entrepreneurship. He's been involved in 4 startup companies, big and small, at a C-suite level, 2 medical companies. One was a brain-machine interface company. I'm excited to hear Ben talk about that. And he's currently the CEO of Lumenuity, which is a deep tech optics company. There's going to be so much goodness in today's conversation. I know it's going to make us think about our own businesses, about innovation, about tech, about pushing those new frontiers. So I'm excited about this one. I'm not going to say anything else. Let's dive straight into my interview with Ben Shapiro. All right, Ben, I am so very excited that you're here with us today. First things first, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Brian. Awesome to be here. Excited for it.
Heck yes, you have such a cool background, and there's so many different ways I want to go today that it's going to be hard to squeeze them all into a quick conversation, but we've got to start with you. Take us beyond the bio. Who's Ben? How'd you start doing all these cool things?
Yeah, it's really interesting. I started as a faculty. So I went from Georgia Tech and then Caltech, and then right out of Caltech, I became a professor. I was super young when I did that. I had students in my undergraduate classes that were older than me. And so I started with that. And then just as I was doing that, and as I was doing first aerospace and then bio, it kind of became more and more apparent that to really get the stuff out, it helps to run the whole thing. It helps to be able to do the business side, do the strategy side, do the engineering, do the R&D, do all of it, and that was just better. That was just better outside. So I wound up quitting tenure, giving up tenure, and going the way of being my own boss, running my own company, and that's where I am now.
Yes, I love that overview, Ben, especially because you and I were talking a little bit off the air and how much I geek out about all things camera lenses. Obviously, I have a production as a podcast host for almost 1,300 episodes now. I love drones. I love my smartphone camera, but I also love good old-fashioned DSLR cameras. Ben, I'm always loving taking pictures and capturing those memories, which gets me particularly excited about what you're up to with Lumenuity. Introduce listeners to what the company is, because there's so much high-powered tech behind what you believe the future can unlock for all of us.
Yeah, so when you have these cameras, and I mean, phones have become almost like little mini supercomputers, and so they're trying to jam more and more performance into smaller and smaller spaces just to get as good a shot on your phone as you can in a DSLR camera. And that's hard, right? Because the laws of optics are geometry, physics, and to really get like amazing camera quality into smaller and smaller spaces. I mean, they're packing 3, some companies are packing 4 or 5 cameras into a device that fits inside my hand. And it's just, we have tech that allows companies to do that. And so you now get way more performance, way more optical performance in a small space. So that's better for mobile devices, better for phones, for drones. We have stuff that we're doing for augmented reality. Basically, packing more optics and more image quality into smaller spaces, right? And that's good for everything from smartphones to drones to augmented reality to laptops to self-driving cars, like humanoid robots, like there's lots and lots of places where you want to be able to pack an amazing ability to take video and photos into tiny little spaces.
Yeah, it's fun hearing you talk about that because, Ben, you actually put into perspective, I don't think any of us realize just how much camera optics and lenses factor into our day-to-day lives. Hearing you bring up cars made me realize, yeah, of course, all of our cars these days also have those camera lenses. And Ben, I've got to confess, as a longtime Tesla driver, I definitely drink the Tesla Kool-Aid, very much so, because it's a tech company after all, more so than just a car company. And I've been fascinated by their full self-drive software. I didn't realize that it's not just a question of AI these days when it comes to full self-driving capabilities. Tesla's been bumping into real hardware concerns of how can we get the cameras to be good enough, and they've been iterating that hardware over generations of their cars. But a lot of people always wonder, is this too futuristic? Like, how obviously you are working to bridge that gap between where we are today and that future. How far are we really?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I mean, so if you look at the self-driving cars and you compare like Waymo to Tesla, like Waymo has all these extra sensor suites on it, right? And Tesla is trying to do the same with with just cameras, right? And they want to have the cameras in small spaces so the driver doesn't notice them. But there's tons of them. They're all over the car, and you need that. You need that to be able to like see in every direction, you know, which car is coming up behind me, which car is to the right of me. So that is, it's true for cars. It's true for drones. It's true for, and there's so many, like, they're pervasive, right? Like image quality, images, the AI that processes them, they're like everywhere, right? Like they're in storefronts, they're in mobile devices that you use, they're in cars and airplanes and drones. They're everywhere.
Yeah, it's true. Heck, even our doorbells these days. And when you walk into stores, there's so many commercial use cases of this as well that now I'm just thinking in terms of cameras that are looking at us all the time. You and I are both being looked at by cameras right now.
Well, exactly. Mine in like a really thin laptop, right, in the top. But yeah, they're basically becoming invisible. And so for the cameras to be invisible, the hardware that does that needs to be able to do that, right? Like you need to be able to squeeze tiny little cameras into thin laptops to be able to see the image in a good way. So yeah, that takes optics, that takes real work, and the race is never ending, right? Like the smaller you make it, the more performance you give it, the more it'll be adopted. And so the fact that we can go in and make these cameras substantially better, the market for that is just so giant, right? I mean, I don't know if most people realize this. These when these cameras are made, some of these top companies, they're making 1 billion cameras a year. That's like 30 cameras a second, right? I mean, it's just the volume of these things is just astonishing. Like how many of these cameras are out there? So it's mind-boggling.
It is. And actually, I'm really excited to hear because obviously you're one of the innovators in this space and you've got big dreams. And we're going to talk about some of your very early accolades that you guys are scooping up behind the scenes at Lumenuity. But I want to ask you the question because we're at this really interesting point in time where there's both software advancements very quickly and the world is begging for hardware to match it. It's something that as an early adopter to Apple Vision Pro, I get questions from people all the time where they're just like, how real does it look when you're in there? And people have tried Oculus Rift before and all these different AR, VR type of solutions. The hardware in many cases is lacking behind the software. So Ben, what's your team's focus on? Are we strictly talking hardware improvements here, software that goes into it? How do you view the innovation going hand in hand?
Yeah, there's actually two cool questions in there. One is why are these headsets large, and the second one is what are we doing? So the reason the headsets are large is there's a lot you have to do. You have to get a large field of view. You have to get good image quality. You have to, and you're trying to squeeze that into a small space. And there's laws of physics that dictate how big the optics must be to enable that, and not only how big, but how efficient. And so without really careful abilities to kind of move the needle in terms of how you project the optics, you wind up at these very large kind of helmet-sized AR headsets. And there's real fundamental reasons for that. So to change that is like requires real deep tech. The second part of it, the part of like the software versus the hardware, it's both, right? So like the hardware gets you the bits in the first place, right? Like there's a certain number, like you need to get like the data in before the AI can start doing the image processing and the image recognition and all of this stuff. So it's, you need the data in for the AI, and then you need the AI to process the data, and it's the sum of those two, and either one alone is not enough, and so one is driving the other, and actually they're both driving each other.
Yeah, that's a cool world that we're living in, where those two happen in conjunction. Because looking back, I mean, I grew up in an age where the floppy disk was the peak of data storage for us on the consumer level. And you've already pointed out, our phones are all supercomputers these days. It's crazy how far we've come. Ben, I'm not that old, so me talking about floppy disks shows how quickly these advancements are happening. And obviously with the mass adoption of AI, advancements are happening even quicker than ever before. But everybody wants to talk about AI. Ben, personally, what I want to get into with you is your background and how that's led up to what you're doing today with Lumenuity, because I'm sure people look at your academic background, the fact that you've worked in medical companies, optomagnetic, which I kind of teased that in your intro, brain-machine interface company. How have these experiences set you up for the deep tech innovations that you're doing these days?
You know, it's very cool. When I was a faculty, I started in aerospace. And then when I started my faculty position, I'm like, you know what? Bio is really cool. I'm gonna switch to bio. So I went from airplanes to MRIs and images and medical stuff. And so there was this kind of like this transition. Like I had to like figure out how to very quickly learn big new chunks of very important information. Like so for example, we were going from how planes fly to like, hey, like now I'm standing in a surgery and I need to figure out how brain surgery is being done and what is needed in this situation. And so there was a very like efficient way of beginning to like grab new information from new people, and that's kind of what it feels like. Like there's a way of talking to somebody who's very, very smart and extracting new information that becomes actionable, and learning new fields quickly. And so doing this, I kind of learned how to talk to, well, at the time I was talking to surgeons and medical doctors and chemists coming from aerospace. But that skill set of like being able to sit down with somebody who has a very different background and kind of very quickly gauge, what does this person need? What does this person know? What does this person who's very smart need to understand about what we're doing, so that you come to some kind of connection that is actually useful and helpful and helps both parties. That's a really useful skill set. And it turns out it's fantastic for companies, because I do the exact same thing day in and day out, right? But now it's not just, I shouldn't say just, now in addition to doctors and chemists and biologists, it's strategy and business people and folks that are, you know, in leadership positions at mega cap companies. And this skill set of like kind of very quickly figuring out what to talk about and what the person's really asking, what do they need, how do you find the information, and then how do you act on it and come back and have something that they couldn't do before. That's a fantastic skill set that's really translated surprisingly amazingly from faculty to business.
Yeah, not only that, but I feel like all of these things epitomize what it means to be an entrepreneur, is that we do have to figure things out. We do have to be resourceful. That's another adjective that I'm really hearing that you value, and that has translated across both those parts of your careers. And I want to go there with you, because you guys are taking on a huge mission behind what you're doing right now. And obviously a huge mission requires the right people, a huge team, the big thinkers behind it, and people who are resourceful, people who are proactive, people who embrace embrace the fact that you're going down a road that hasn't been paved just yet. You guys, in many ways, are the innovators, and that's often a very hard role to fill. So what's the team look like behind the scenes? Because you guys have been up to some very big things, and I'm also gonna load this question up for you because I want you to talk about the team, but I also want you to talk about some of those early accolades, that external validation that has shown you guys, hey, we're working on the right stuff. Obviously, you very recently were at Pepperdine University out in your neck of the woods in Southern California, and you guys competed in the most fundable companies competition. So talk to us about your team and what exactly you've made possible already.
Yeah, so thank you. So the team is fantastic. I really try to pick almost best in world for each specific task that we're doing, and so it's folks that have been at C-suite leadership at major phone companies that have done this for decades. We have some of the best lens designers that have decades of experience. We find people that are just really unique and that have a scope of knowledge that is both really broad and really deep. So I kind of like these, like, I don't know, background that almost looks like a T, like the person has like a wide base of knowledge, but he also can dig really deep and has, depth of experience. And so if you can find somebody like that, that has an amazing ability, that's perfect, right? So we have folks that have overseen manufacture of billions of devices. We have folks that have been in the industry for decades. And just that advisory team is amazing. And then my co-founder, Ido Walks, is one of the smartest people I've ever worked with. Has a similar kind of view on life as I do, right? Like figure stuff out very quickly. Is expert in optics and quantum. Really good at good common sense for strategic thinking. It's just really amazing team. And then on the Pepperdine side, they actually came to us. So Pepperdine came to us and asked us to apply. And turns out over 2,300 companies applied. And these are Pepperdine's looking for the most fundable companies in the United States. And we landed in the top 30, right? So we're now in the top 30. We reached the finalists. Top 30 most fundable companies in the U.S. That's pretty cool. And we haven't been around that long. So to get that kind of recognition, in addition to the team and the advisors and our tech, that's really cool.
Heck yes. And once again, Ben, congratulations to you and the entire team in that. That is a huge feat. And that's on a really broad scale. As someone who's also lived in the LA area, I mean, there's so much innovation that's happening. That's obviously a global wide competition. 2,300 plus companies is an incredible field that Pepperdine was obviously analyzing. And they see so much potential there. But I'm going to use that potential, Ben, to totally put you on the spot in today's conversation, because I get the chance, obviously, to interview and interact with and work with so many brilliant entrepreneurs and innovators. And at my heart, not only do I love entrepreneurship, but gosh, I love marketing. And I'm a big believer that when you have an amazing product, when you have an amazing innovation, you have an obligation to equally love marketing, because you can't just let this be the best kept secret, Ben. You've got to get it out into the world. And I know that you take a lot of inspiration from kind of the Nvidia business model type, because Nvidia is powering so many incredible other companies to run with a really incredible technological foundation to make other things possible. So let's talk about, what is that distribution plan? Because you guys are doing cool things. How are we going to see it manifest in the world?
Yeah, no, that's really cool, and the connection to the Nvidia-style business plan, that's a really neat connection. So I'll take a step back. Like when these mega cap companies manufacture phones, they're doing so at huge scales, right? They're selling. There's a billion new phones sold every year. Phone makers are making tens of millions, hundreds of millions of phones. For drones, it's similar, right? There's just it's at a very large scale, right? So what we do is we design the better technology, and then we tech transfer it to these companies. And that way I can keep a really small team that has a really big impact on a huge market without having to stand up ginormous manufacturing facilities, right? So if you think about it in terms of ROI, right? Like ROI it's a ratio, right? It's the amount of money that you would exit for divided by the amount of money that it took to get there, right? So for us, the market is ginormous, right? I mean, there's almost every person on the planet has a cell phone. Each cell phone has multiple cameras in it. But the team that we and the resources that we need to get there is actually quite small, and that's because we do the designs. And once we can prove to these mega cap companies, which we're doing, that our camera designs exceed what they can do, then we license it in, and then the manufacturing is done on their side. And so we have a small team that feeds into a huge market. It's just we've put almost as much thought into our business model as we have into the tech, and that's crucial, right? So it's kind of both sides of a really good story.
Yeah, I really appreciate the way that you talk about that and the way that you articulate it, especially because to me, you're really displaying for so many listeners and myself here today what that role of the CEO looks like. Because I feel like it's easy as entrepreneurs. We love our products and services. It's why we got into business, is we want to bring those to the world. But the fact that you're putting so much intentional effort behind the actual model, the distribution, those mega cap partnerships that you're going to be bringing on board, that's where the real power lies. And it really makes me reflect on all the best CEOs that I've ever had the chance to interview and to learn from. They have a really strong ability to zoom in and to zoom out. It's both of those things. I'd love for you to talk to us about your executive mindset, your executive vision and strategy. What does that look like, and how does it manifest in how you're spending your time? I don't know if it's weekly, monthly, quarterly, the way that you're structuring, how you're making sure you're covering all these bases.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of points there. The biggest one is focus, right? So everything that we do and that my team does and that I initiate and follow through on is laser focused on the biggest wins, right? And that's both like an obvious point to make and a subtle point to make, right? Because you really want to carefully pick the resources that you're using so that the investor dollars that you bring in are used in the most efficient way possible. And that's important, not just, I mean, it's important for founders, it's important for investors, it's important for the health of the company. That's really critical. So we really, and I really, and my co-founder, like, we really spend a lot of effort making sure that every dollar that is coming in is being used for what truly matters, right? And so for us, that is tech development, intellectual property, and marketing, but marketing in the sense of approaching the right players at the right companies and having conversations with decision makers at those companies, right? So it's a very lean team, intentionally so, and the business model is designed to stay lean. And so I think that's the biggest thing. The equally important, so I guess they're both equally important, is just picking the absolute best people that can do that, right? So if you can get somebody who is very experienced and in this across a whole space, then that person can see connections between different business lines. He can understand, or she can understand, how to take one success on one side of the company and transition it with a good use of resources into success on another side of the company. It becomes an efficient, very efficient workflow. So that's what I've been doing, and that's what we've been doing, is picking really carefully what projects we work on, what we're focused on, and the people that are executing them.
Yeah, which I think that really your answer there and those insights to me suggest that you also have a very strong executive filter in the way that you see the world. And I would imagine it's especially true behind the scenes at a company like yours, because I mean, you and I teased at the top of today's episode probably 1,000 different use cases for your technology. And I can imagine that there's so many different directions you could go in and that you probably want to go in into the future. How do you filter it down into, hey, here's what's actionable today? You talk so much about your careful consideration into where you're allocating your resources. How do you filter, here's what we're going to tackle today, here's what we're going to just going to shelf? Either we'll come back to it in the future, or it's just not something we're focused on.
Yeah, I mean that's a great question. You look at the market size, and you look at the time to get there, and you look at the resources that would be required to get there. So, I mean, phones are a great example, right? They're a huge market. We've developed tech that can get there, and we have a small team that can do it, right? So that's like a win-win-win, right? And then up next would be drones, right? Because they're similar, right? There's a lot of them. There's a big need for them, and it's the same basic need. It's being able to put more optics performance in less weight, size, and dollar, right? Like in less weight, size, and cost. So we rank order the opportunities we go after by how big a payoff it is, and how quickly and with what resources we can get to that payoff. And you're right, Brian. I mean, we're very draconian about it almost, right? Like, I'm not going to go after an opportunity that is a nice to have. I'm going to go after the big things. And yeah, if in a few years, like, all the big things are done, which is there's plenty of big things to focus on first, then you can go after medium-sized things. But yeah, it's focus and bringing that focus to bear on the biggest possible opportunities.
Yeah, so well said. I love the way that you view that. And that's so many things. Actually, I'll bring it back to an analogy that I saw within the world of academia. There was a professor once that had a mason jar in front of the classroom, and he filled it with golf balls, and he asked the classroom, hey, is this thing full? And all the students were like, yeah, it's literally filled to the brim with golf balls. And then he poured some sand in, and he was just like, is it full now? And the students were like, yeah, now it's full. And at the end of it, he pours a beer in, and he's just like, no, now is it full? Exactly. And there's always room for us, but the order of operations matters. Is that if he poured the sand in first, none of those golf balls are going to fit. Right. And so really hearing the way you think about it, it's just such a visual reminder for me of that analogy. And that, again, coming back to the executive filter, I'm so grateful for you showcasing that for us today, Ben. I also love asking this question at the end of every single episode. I've asked it for almost 1,300 episodes at this point. It's super broad. You can take it in any direction you want. And that is, what's your best piece of advice for listeners? Knowing that we're being listened to by both entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs at all different stages of their own growth journeys, and also knowing that you are one of us as a fellow entrepreneur, what's that one thing that you want to leave them with today?
I think I'll speak to the kind of the technical startup founders, because I've seen this a lot. I was a faculty. I saw students start companies. I saw other faculty start companies. I've seen other engineers start companies. You want to get the people in quickly that know the stuff that you don't, and that includes soft skills. That includes things like being able to understand how to set up your processes. That includes being able to understand marketing. That includes being able to understand how to create a team, that all of these things. And then eventually, when you've done that a bunch of times, you absorb that through osmosis, and then you can get to a really lean team where you know how to do it yourself, or can have only a small number of people that kind of encapsulate all of that, and then you have a really tight team that covers everything. So it's a common piece of advice, but just how important that is still mostly, I've seen it get undervalued a lot, and then a year later you come up to the same guy or the same lady, and they're like, yeah, I wish I would have had a strategy person earlier, or thought about this other non-engineering thing earlier. That's you want to think about that at the beginning. So I think that would be the biggest thing I'd say.
Yes. Listeners who are not watching Ben and I during this conversation, you're just tuning into the audio version of this. Ben had a big smile on his face as he offered that advice, because he has seen it all too well so many times. I've personally seen that as well. So many brilliant entrepreneurs. Again, your product is only half of your business. The rest of it is just as important. And Ben, you've emphasized that so frequently during today's conversation that I don't think it's too simplistic of advice. I think the simple advice is often the advice that we need constant reminding of, which is why I love that Einstein quote of, if you want to impress somebody, make it complicated. If you want to help somebody, make it simple. And Ben,
for sure.
you are such a talent in that regard. I'm so grateful for where you are in this marketplace as one of those pushers in the front line, one of those pioneers driving that innovation forward. So I am personally very excited to continue to follow all the cool things that you guys are up to. But for listeners who want to find you online, check out all the cool things that you're up to, all these awards that are surely going to continue coming your way. Drop those links on us. Where should listeners go from here?
Well, so the first place they should go is, we have a website, so they should go to lumenuityinc.com, LUMENUITYINC.com, and then over in there you can contact us and you can get connected to anything we're doing. If there's any potential investors, we have a round open, and you can connect with us at investor relations at lumenuityinc.com. But basically, our website has all the information. You can also find me on LinkedIn. I'm easily, I can be easily found.
Heck yes, and including that easily found, Ben, we are dropping all of those links down below in the show notes, no matter where listeners are tuning into today's episode. So if you're on the go, you don't remember how to spell Lumenuity, no worries, you can click right on through from the show notes. You'll find their website. We're also linking to Ben's personal LinkedIn, so if you want to reach out to him, whether you're an investor or heck, you want to introduce him to somebody, because there's so much room for collaboration and so many opportunities here, then we're also linking to his personal LinkedIn, because I imagine he is certainly not the only Ben Shapiro, so we're making it as easy for you to find him on LinkedIn. Otherwise, Ben, on behalf of myself and all the listeners worldwide, thanks so much for coming on the show today.
Brian, thank you.